Everyone, this is Stephen Roddy, co-founder of Modern Beauty Con, and today's guest is from a company that's rethinking how the self-care businesses like yours, like your med spa, run and grow. Boulevard isn't just another booking platform. They were built specifically for the beauty and wellness space with tools that help you streamline operations, elevate your client experience, and boost your profitability, all without the usual tech headaches. Their team believes that service providers deserve software that serves them, and they've designed Boulevard to do just that, from seamless scheduling and payments to powerful data and automation that free up you so that you can do what's best. And today we've got Skya Jones, who's educational manager and med spa expert. So just going to help us break this down and break down software in general. So Skya is going to help you self-analyze your scheduling and booking platform to say like what's working, what can be improved, and potentially if Boulevard is an option. So Skya, welcome to the call.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to dive in and hopefully give some helpful tips on how to pick effective tech for med spas.
Yeah, I mean, if most of them are like how my wife and I got started, which we'll get to that, you just kind of eyes closed, you pick one, and then you're just trying to get your business up and going without a whole lot of thought to that. But, you know, how we got started in general is like we just asked somebody else, like, hey, like, what do you use? Did you like it? How much is it? Cool. All right, I'll sign up too. Why is that not a great strategy?
Yeah, I totally understand this because I've been in the same boat. I've been in that position of you're just starting up. You generally just ask your peers in the industry, like, hey, what are you using? And it's kind of like what you know is just what you choose. And this is very common. Like we usually go based off of that recommendation, but it can be a big detriment because a lot of the time it takes a lot of exploring and a really almost like a investigative process of what's going to be a good fit. And also long term, is this going to grow with me? So, thinking about the future, you really want to have tech that supports that growth, but that will also fit that growth in the long term, because the goal is to not have to switch systems all the time or grow out of systems into other systems. You really want to find something you can stick with for the long haul. So I think something that anyone who's looking into a new piece of technology or a new investment in technology is really sitting down and taking time to think through, what would this look like implemented in my business? What's the ROI with this? I'm spending, X amount of dollars on this per month and to get started on it. And is that actually going to bring an increase in revenue for us? I think, I'm sure you've been in the same boat too, but a lot of the time we look at our technology as more of just a cost of doing business and not as an investment. So I think that's a really important process to go through.
Yeah, and the challenge with too, like asking a friend is if you're just entering in the industry, you probably don't typically have a network of really successful spas. You probably have a friend that's doing it or know a nurse, and it's like, what do you guys use? And you're asking like an office manager or a friend who does injectables, and they don't really know the nuances of the business. They're just like, oh yeah, we use this on the phone app, and yeah, it seems to work great. And they're like, okay, fine, because they're thinking about, okay, office space, the legal setup, and all the other nuances. But to your point, I mean, I've heard it said this in the world of tech: you can have any of these two, or say there's three things, and you can have two of them, but you cannot have all three. It's speed, cost, and quality. So, like, if you get started really quick, right, and you can have it really cheap, but then you suffer on quality, or you can get started really quick and it could be high quality, but then it costs you a lot of money too. So the cost part is if you get started right away, and then the cost can be crazy, even if the monthly cost of the software is low, because maybe the leads coming in, it's hard to book, you're losing people, the cost to change things down the road can be wild. But Boulevard makes it really easy. So I will say that about you all.
Thank
Um,
you.
o- okay,
I
so
I
go ahead.
like that analogy of the three things because I think a lot of the time, we're looking for something that fits all of those boxes. And generally with anything, you're going to pay a little bit more for quality. So for me, running a med spa, like I would rather pay a little bit higher of a monthly fee if I'm getting something in return that's worth it, right? So
Yeah,
I think that's something too with like just like our devices, our injectables, like it's worth that investment.
it is. And I know that for you watching, you're maybe an injector trying to branch out to your med spa. Maybe you've been doing this for 8 or 9 years and you're just like, okay, let me just see if I have the right software. But the issue with you, the listener or watcher, is that you're not a booking software expert. So you don't know what questions to ask. You don't know what's good. You kind of like have a half idea. And so what I found that it doesn't matter if I'm changing softwares or hiring people. I like to look at like 7 or 8 different people, even if it's a subcontractor I'm going to hire. And I like to always ask them the question like, all right, what makes you different from all the other booking softwares? What makes you different from all the other accountants? There's a lot of accountants. And then I like to see what they tell me at the end, because then like that question, it will spark other questions. And then it really helps to set aside the part of the person that I should be working with. Um, so with that, let's move on to like high level. Should a med spa owner or office manager be looking for in a booking software? Just like it can be rapid fire, just throw them
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah, I definitely would say biggest thing is what is the ROI? Like what is this going to bring to the business in terms of increase in revenue, whether that be from streamlining processes, if it's making my front desk more efficient so they can focus on like that in-person client interaction, that's an increase on ROI on my side, right? And then, where we can automate things that we don't need a real person to do it in the world of tech. AI is a huge conversation right now. And I think it's important to see where can we automate and where can we streamline so that our people on the team can really focus on that human interaction touch point. I don't want people making phone calls for appointment reminders, right? That's way too expensive, way too time consuming. A system can do email and text message reminders. So high level, always looking at what can a system automate or streamline for not only yourself as an owner or manager, but your front desk, for your service providers, for the team as a whole, your marketing team, right? You don't want someone spending a ton of time doing marketing flows and segments.
Yeah.
Your system should be able to automate. So I always use that terminology of automate efficiency as like high level. That should always be the focus. And then client experience. So many businesses will, invest in technology that has not the best client experience. And when it comes down to it, a client is going to rebook with you based on how easy it is to schedule online. They're going to book based off of how, the interaction with the check-in and check-out processes. If I have to log into a really clunky old school EMR web portal to schedule an appointment, it's confusing, it's cumbersome, I'm going to give up and go to the next place, right?
Right. Completely. And that's the whole, like, I love that you said about ROI because that can come in a lot of different forms other than just money. And a lot of times people go directly to the money, which I mean is important, right? As far as like, well, how many appointments are you booking for me? Right. And that is a true metric. But the problem with that metric is you don't really know until you switch to Boulevard. There's some averages, which I think statistically, how many more appointments do people book when they switch to Boulevard? I thought there was a number there on the homepage.
Yeah, there is. We have a whole actual case study for med
Okay.
spas, and there's a ton of really good metrics on there. I think for med spas, we're at an increase of like 25% more appointments booked. But things like other metrics like memberships and packages, we have a 175% increase after a year of being on Boulevard.
Yeah.
Um, and that case study I recommend for anybody. We have it on our website at joinblvd.com. It's so nice for just even seeing like, okay, what metrics should I ask about when I am looking at software? Not even
Yeah.
related specifically to Boulevard. Like you said, you want to analyze, 5 to 6 options or more when you're looking at potential partners to work with. So I use that as a good guide for like, hey, what should I ask about in a demo or sales process? Like, are you going to support this metric?
Yeah.
So definitely recommend anybody listening check that case study out.
Yeah, and if you have somebody like Boulevard, you can use that as your goalpost. Like, all right, they've already done the case study, so then you start to compare other people to them. The one thing that, full disclosure for everybody watching, we use a software right now called Mango Mint, and Boulevard was an advertiser at Modern Beauty Con. They were an exhibitor, and so we are looking to switch Roddy Medspa over to Boulevard now. Financially, I look to say, like, does this make sense from a numbers perspective? And then what I do is I have my office manager, because our core value is like ownership. So it's not up to me, it's up to her, because she owns that med spa, as far as like she owns the domain. My wife and I like own it. Well, technically on paper, Renata owns it 100%. I'm not allowed to because I live in Massachusetts and I don't have a medical background. So Renata owns it. But the office manager, we are empowering her to do her job and say, is this the right solution for you and for the team? But I can say financially, we use Mango Mint, and then we also use MailChimp to send out newsletter, because Mango Mint doesn't. And then we also use High Level. Some of you might refer to that as Go High Level. The actual name is High Level, just a website that's Go High Level, for text message and automated emails. Well, when you combine those 3 costs with the cost of Boulevard, we're actually saving money just between like Mango Mint and MailChimp. And then Boulevard will take other things off the plate of High Level, so we won't spend as much on texts and emails. So for me, I'm like, financially, we're going to save money moving to Boulevard. So it makes total sense from that perspective. So I'm like, even if it doesn't increase anything, like it's a net positive at the end of the day. So you can look to say, what other softwares does it automate and make the front desk life easier? But I do like that return on investment from an efficiency perspective, simplicity. Like, I mean, imagine office manager, a new office manager coming to the role, and they've got to straddle like 3 or 4 different softwares. It's confusing.
Yeah,
Okay.
huge learning curve too for anyone. If you haven't used those platforms, it's 3xing the onboarding process for that person.
Yeah. And when our office manager went on a maternity leave, it was like, oh, geez. Like, so many things are falling through the cracks. It's like, oh, you didn't check this third software over here? Like, why not?
Yep.
Oh, sorry, I forgot. All right. So as it pertains to just booking software, like, where do you see most med spas losing money and then they don't even realize it?
Oh, that's a good one. There's a lot to choose from, to be honest, and I've done it. I mean, I've used software just because it's what was there when I started at the med spa, and I didn't want to go through the headache of transitioning. I think honestly, the most simplistic thing is online booking. If you aren't having a intelligent algorithm running in the background of the online booking process, and you're kind of just letting clients book wherever, or not even utilizing online booking or pushing it, it's a huge loss. I mean, we know the consumer today wants to be able to book in under 30 seconds. We know that any friction points can lead to a drop off in conversion. And then on top of that, Boulevard being our own payment facilitator and everything running through us, being able to have a card on file or hold deposits is kind of becoming an industry standard now. Like, really, people shouldn't be able to cancel last minute or no show without having that kind of safety mechanism of they're going to pay the cancellation fee or the no show fee. Our provider's time is extremely valuable, whether you're an esthetician, an injector, or whatever it may be. You shouldn't have people falling off the schedule constantly. And if you're not a payment facilitator or your booking software doesn't have the capability to take payment or validate cards, that's a huge loss on that part. So definitely making sure your online booking is up to par in terms of the algorithm that runs with what times we're offering to clients, and then also just making sure you're protecting your time.
Yeah. So I'll say that when we got started in our med spa, we use Booker, like Mind Body,
Hmm.
and that was what everybody else used. And my wife was just like, "This is the one we should use." I say, "Okay, fine." Didn't look into it, and then, I mean, a few months into it, I started. I mean, at that point, I was like, "All right, let me go through this actual setup flow." And so I went through the setup flow, and it caused people to create an account. Like you had to create an account on Booker or
Huge
Mind
drop off
Body.
point. Yeah, huge
Huge.
drop off.
I was like, "Oh, this is not going to work." And but Renata was sold because like that's what everybody else like used. And so then, I mean, it was like maybe a year and a half later, 2 years. Like I did the Google Analytics and I combined the drop off, and I was like, we've lost like $50,000 in bookings based on that drop off. People would get to that last, they would click the service, they would click the time, the day, and they would go to create the accounts, and then the steep drop off. And I did the math of, because other software, if you didn't have to create that, you create the account, and they'd already be on the schedule. I was
Yep.
like, we lost like $50,000 this year in estimated cost in bookings. And then there's like, okay, yeah, we'll change. So and so something like that, if you don't have the ability to look at your Google Analytics because you don't come from a tech background like I do, then you might not be realizing how much your money is just going right back out the door.
Yeah, and it's huge for not only that, it's you're losing new client retention or the ability to get new clients. And a lot of the time, people aren't going to call. A lot of people will be like, well, as long as they get on the phone with someone at my front desk, they'll be able to convert them, get them for a consultation. But it's just not the age of that type of consumer anymore. So people
Yeah.
really, I always tell people, do an audit of your booking process, see what those friction points are, and if it's something with your menu setup or your service organization, or is it just your tech doesn't allow for easy booking? Like that's something you really have to analyze.
Yeah, and we made one little change to our booking, and it decreased the amount of money that it costs to get somebody through our door by $25. So it was
Wow.
like per person. So like, oh, okay, great. So and it wasn't anything phenomenal. It was just like a little shift. I was like, oh, okay. And we didn't change booking softwares. It was just changing one little thing. So yeah, you got to be almost like Nazi about like going through that process, making sure that you just clean out and make it as simple as possible. So what's in absolute like no? Like if your booking software does X or doesn't do Y, then like you need to change it today, regardless of the cost or regardless of the challenge.
Ooh, that's a good one. I mean, I think for me, I'm biased because Boulevard's precision scheduling algorithm was like a life changer for me. I actually didn't even want, when I was managing med spas, I wasn't even really worried about online booking. I was like, more of, hey, if we get their information, I can get somebody on the phone and get them scheduled. Like, I'm not worried about my online booking process. It's more of a headache for me, anyways, because patients pick wonky times. They don't know what to schedule, when to schedule them.
Mhm.
And then when I actually saw the back end and like the algorithm with our precision scheduling at Boulevard before I worked here, I was like, this is life changing. Like, this is your best front desk person in a technology piece of technology that is running all the time. So it doesn't matter if it's working hours, doesn't matter if it's 2 a.m. Someone can book their hydrofacial and their Botox. It's in the right order at the right time and increases efficiency within the business. And not only from like a, financial piece of that. Like, of course, we want to make good margins. We want to increase revenue, but also for service providers. Like, my service providers want to be booked back to back. They want to make as much money in the day as possible. They don't want gaps of unbookable time. There's nothing worse than, as a provider, having, 45 minutes open that could have been, an hour filler appointment that they could have made revenue with.
Yeah. So let me ask you about that, because um, so with one, as a service provider, you watching, what you're really selling is not Botox, filler, laser. What you're really selling is time. So
Mhm.
you got, like, that's your true asset, right? Because if you're only open for 12 hours a week at max, you can only, treat patients 12 hours. Um, so, but how does Boulevard do that? Because it seems like online booking, any software can do online booking and just drag them in. What is really so proprietary or unique about how Boulevard schedules?
Yeah, so I could talk about this forever. But the kind of simplistic overview of it is that we use an algorithm that basically allows for our software and the intelligence to kind of offer time strategically. So instead of offering a 9, a 9:15, 9:30, 9:45, where a client can say, "Hey, I don't want to have to rush to get there. I'm going to pick a 9:15." Really, what that's doing is leaving a gap of unbookable time either before or after the appointment that another client can't fill, because it's
Mm.
kind of that awkward time. So what Boulevard does is we anchor appointments together by offering time strategically. We're also constantly analyzing calendars, not only on a business level, but on a provider level, of looking what's most likely to book. How can we increase efficiency here by taking their most common bookings or the most likely um, happening of a booking and taking that into the algorithm. So there's a lot of things on the back end that are.
Wait, so that's cool. So it'll say Renata is most likely to book on Wednesday evening. So it doesn't offer up Wednesday evening right away to people. It offers up like a Tuesday morning that's the least likely to book. Is that what it does?
It would kind of analyze, like, hey, if Renata's mostly doing 45-minute Botox appointments or 30-minute Botox appointments, we're going to offer this time strategically because we know that most likely we're going to fit 2 Botox appointments in this slot. Or
Yeah.
maybe it's a more filler heavy injector where they're hour appointments. We're not going to offer a 9:15 or a 9:45 because that's going to leave those awkward gaps of unbookable time.
Mm.
So really that anchoring and that likelihood, or that kind of variability of what's most likely to book in this slot or what's most likely to fill up on this provider schedule. The other thing that we can do that I really like from a kind of staff retention perspective is if someone's just booking online or calling in even and they're saying, "Hey, I don't care who I get in with, just whoever's available first," we can actually delegate those non-requested or staff-specific bookings to less booked providers. So newer estheticians that maybe aren't booked out forever, instead of taking like a really valuable slot on an esthetician who's constantly being requested by their clients, we could take that non-requested appointment and say, "Hey, put this with an esthetician who's less booked," and
Mm.
help build their book of business, which I really like, because if a client's just looking to get in the door and get in as soon as possible, let me like expose them to a really great provider who might not be as busy and help build up her books, and in total just increase utilization in the business as a whole.
Yeah, and as a side note, I really do hate the discount for like a new injector or a new esthetician, because it cheapens them. Like, oh, we
Yeah.
got a new esthetician. Okay. Discount, like she's not as, like, the subliminal messaging. She's not as good. So, like, be her training wheels. So I like, that's a cool feature that Boulevard has there. Uh, I would say that to answer the own question, like what's an absolute no is somebody, like, if you've got like Mind Body or Booker, that they require you, or they require the patient to log in or create an account. Like, absolutely, like,
Yeah.
change it, because I've lived it, and it's costing you, I promise you, whatever money you have to spend for a new software, it's going to be cheaper for you than whatever it is that you're paying them. Like, that only helps their business. Like,
You've ran the
It doesn't
numbers.
help yours.
It's not worth it.
Yes. Yeah. For us, so like, we got to like right now, like yesterday, we need to change. So whatever it costs, get out of that. What kind of reports should owners be able to pull from their booking software? Like since you're the expert, like
Yeah.
which one should they pull?
I mean, the short answer would be any reports needed, but also quickly. Like I've spent hours in systems configuring reports, trying to figure out how to pull stuff. Really, like your systems should surface your most needed reports really easily to you.
Mhm.
Being able to pull your staff's performance is huge. Like if I can't see with a quick glance what my staff's utilization is, what their average sales per appointment, whether it's retail or services, are, um, any of the staff performance metrics, I think, are huge.
Yeah.
I used to spend time manually calculating my staff's utilization, and I would use like 3 different reports to figure that out. Within Boulevard, we're doing all of that calculation for you.
Mhm.
And you can also do it on a resource level. So if you're buying a machine like a laser or a body contouring machine, being able to pull performance metrics for that specific device is huge too, because they're expensive and you want to make sure you're actually utilizing it in a healthy margin before making another purchase.
Love that. Yeah. So we do pre-book, or some people call it rebook. So like, what's the pre-booking rate
Mhm.
of each provider? How much do they see? How much do they make per hour when they're seeing a patient? And how much do they make per hour overall? And one of the things I started doing like just 3 months ago is I started tracking their productivity rate at the very beginning of the month. And then again at the end of the month, to say like, to get some sort of average of like, oh, okay, at the beginning of the month, they start with X, right? So then I know at the beginning of the month, like we're actually behind, versus where we were last year or last month or whatever. Because, you might have like a 30% productivity rate at the beginning of the month, but then it might always swell to like 75, and that's like your normal. So if you start at 40%, you're like, I think we're going to be completely booked out. Or if it's like 15, like, oh, okay, well, we're slow. So those are some of the ones that we pull that we find a lot of benefit in too. You talked earlier about patient journey and how Boulevard, I think I mentioned in your bio, how Boulevard like helps the patient journey. How does the booking software, just in general, like either attract or detract from the patient's journey?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. Kind of the building blocks of what Boulevard stands for is the client experience or patient experience. And you think about it, that having to make an account when you're booking online, not a good client experience, leads to a drop off. It's a friction point. So everything in Boulevard, even, from the internal side of things, is very user friendly and very intuitive. We've been referred to as kind of like the Apple of softwares for med spas. So really being able to just jump in and understand, whether it's from a patient or client or from a user perspective at the business, how to do things like book an appointment. It should be kind of almost effortless in terms of that. And really, it should serve the client. So getting automatic reminders that automatically go into your calendar, whether it's a Google Calendar, Apple Calendar, automated marketing that isn't spammy. It feels really, high touch and really authentic. All of those things play into this holistic client journey that
Yeah.
makes the clients feel that value, right? We're spending a lot of money when we come in as clients to med spas. I always relate it to Nordstrom, and there's a book called The Nordstrom Way, and it's, when you are greeted and it feels very customized and very personalized. Boulevard is very driven by that very high value client interaction. So I think honestly the basis for a med spa's client journey is the technology that they're using to serve their clients. And they really have to analyze that. We don't want, EMR from the 90s vibe when a client's going to book online or check in. Like, we want to know the second a client checks in, yep, here's who they're seeing, their forms, their intakes, everything's completed. And we know their wedding is in 3 months. And we know all the important details. We don't want to have to sit there and say, wait, what's your last name? What's your phone number? I can't find your appointment. Who are you scheduled with? That sort of
Yep.
thing.
Love that. And I went to a marketing conference a few years ago, and I heard this, like, every click when a person is on the journey to book or buy something from your website, picture every click like your person is getting punched in the face. So you want to have as minimum amounts of punches with the face as possible. And I think that's a really good visual. As a total side note, one feature I really liked about Booker, that when I was going through the demo and with the office manager, is that the provider right in the room can say, oh, like we sell Zeo, a skincare product. And they're like, oh, well, I recommend that you be on the face cream, the moisturizer, whatever. And then that lives on the contacts
Mm-hmm.
profile until you delete it.
Yep.
So I thought that that was really cool, because right now we're doing physical paper circling. And like, all right, these are what we recommend. They take it up there, they buy it or they don't, but then the paper goes away, or we have to manually just type it in there. So
Yep.
I thought that that was a cool little thing. Like, duh, we no longer have to do the paper checkout forms, which is great. Um, let's talk lastly about the dreaded switch, right? And this is something where the office manager's like, all right, okay, this can do a lot of cool things. What's the switching process like? So I was pretty impressed with this, but why don't you walk the listeners through what the switching process is like with Boulevard?
Yeah, so with Boulevard, we have taken a lot of the cornerstones of what we have in our platform into the migration or kind of initiation process. So if you're bringing over data, a lot of the platforms that people are switching over to, we've built migrations from. So our team is basically able to go in and do all of the heavy lifting of getting your data out of your old system, getting it into Boulevard, making sure it looks beautiful. It's not, duplicate client profiles everywhere, all that messy stuff. So the switch is honestly not a ton of bandwidth from the business for those automated migrations that we have. Of course, there are some platforms that aren't as common that we may not have built out migrations for, but we've created a pretty seamless process of importing information, and we've really built and put a lot of investment into that process, because that's the biggest blocker. Like, most
Yeah.
people, Boulevard is kind of a no-brainer. You see it, it's beautiful, it has revenue increasing features. But if you have 10 years of data in your old solution, that can be a huge, like, I'm just going to deal with the evil that I know rather
Yeah.
than having to go through that. So one of my favorite kind of testimonials from an account that I worked really closely with from before they moved over to Boulevard until now, I think they've been on Boulevard for over 3 years. But she was like, it was great. The transition happened while I was sleeping. I came into work the next day and everything was ready to go in Boulevard. And we switched over from our old solution to Boulevard within kind of that overnight transition.
Okay, so lastly, let's talk about the dreaded switch, specifically as it pertains to Boulevard. I mean, I know for us, like when we switched over from uh, Mind Body to Mango Mint, I mean, even still, like half of our patient notes are like in Google Drive, even to this day, even though we made the switch years ago. And if a patient came in and was like older than 3 years, we got to guess like, okay, the providers have to know, all right, you got to go into Google Drive, pull that up, see that notes, and then manually transfer it over. And that, like, I think my office manager has some PTSD about that. And I'm sure people
Totally.
watching has had similar experiences. So tell us about that experience through Boulevard.
Yeah, so the dreaded switch is definitely a real thing. I've done it many times, from paper to electronic systems, and Boulevard is honestly one of the only companies I've seen invest in making it easy for businesses to switch. So we've automated a lot of the migration processes from a lot of the common solutions we see people coming over to Boulevard from. So a lot of it happens in the background, and our teams are just working on getting that data out of your old system into your new system. And really, what is up to the business in terms of what's on their plate is getting your team ready for the switch, highlighting the values of why the switch is happening, running them through what Boulevard is going to be a game changer for. I think that helps get people excited to use a new system, which is really helpful. So a lot of it happens kind of on the background while you're just getting ready to launch Boulevard. And we have all of the training materials on demand. So in terms of onboarding your team at the time of switch, or even when you have, a new front desk manager come in 6 months down the road, Boulevard has all of those resources at your fingertips to onboard new hires, train your team. So I would say out of all of the platforms they've seen in terms of migration, Boulevard makes it the easiest.
Mm.
And we really pride ourselves on that. And that's something that we're really focused on making as easy of a process, because migrations can be a headache. It's stressful to learn something new. It's stressful to leave what you know.
Yeah.
So generally most businesses bringing over, 2 years of data or more, I say plan on about 4 to 6 weeks. If
Mhm.
you're a new business, the nice thing is it's really easy. I would say it takes, aside from just getting your service menu set up, it can happen overnight.
Yeah. Well, I will say this, and this is one of the things I tell my staff, is that any change, either it's positive or negative, it causes, there's going to be a level of stress. And so if you are going to take your office through the change to Boulevard, then it is important to let your providers know, like, cool, it's going to be a little stressful. I mean, even though it's easier, it's still different. You're used to clicking right, and now that button's on the left, or just little nuances like that. And have grace for yourself. Like, we're all going through this together. And I've found that, like, it also is a cool team and office building experience, because you have a bit of a war that you went through together. So you all know the pain points. And then also, especially if the switch is for the better, they have a tendency to trust you a little more as the leader too, because you've led them from this through hard times, but now everybody's work life is so much better at the end. So it can be a really cool team building exercise. But Skya, thank you so much for your advice and your insight. I appreciate it. And everybody, you can just look below this video and see all the necessary links to connect with Boulevard and to get a demo. Thank you.
Thanks so much.